Hi. All right. Well, got no candles in the shot this week. I'm not sure why. They're all lit. But maybe I'll just pan out for a moment. Then you can see. Yes. We have the light there. But I want to be close enough that you can see the page. I'm going to do sort of a part B. We are in week, what are we in, week 16? Yeah, we're into the air story. We're into Libra's house. But I was finishing up. I've just finished up. I'm overlapping. I've done my Libra week work, my first week in Libra work, and I'll do that video right after this. But at the same time, I was, as I was saying, overlapping. I went back, got the protractor. Now, when you have your birth chart printed by anyone else by me, and so maybe I'll go back in and in future Pink Spider chart work, I will add the degrees and stuff. But I was going to, and I would still say I'm not going to modify this book to go backwards and start over with aspects. What came through in this part, in this section, was actually getting into some of the mathematical aspects of the chart, between the planetary positions. Okay, so we did go there. I wasn't anticipating going there, and I don't think it was a mistake. I'm glad that I approached everything without the aspects so far. But in terms of how to make the most to get your advantages, and I'm not even sure that I'm in agreement with what trines and sextiles and squares equate to, but I did go into the Vedic interpretations of those, or the Vedic, however you'd like to say, the Jyotish interpretations, as opposed to Western ideas about what trines and sextiles and squares are, especially squares. Over in the West, we see them as a bad thing, or some do. But in Vedic, in Jyotish, it's actually seen as a positive because it's a spark that gets you moving. It's a contrast, a collision that actually puts you in motion. So I pulled this out one more time because I want to demonstrate where it came to pass. I finished all of this, and if there's anything, yeah, there's a that's what I want to do. Okay, bear with me 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, I need to go back in time a bit to when I was looking up my Jupiter-Neptune opposition. Well, actually, I was looking up, what do I have? With Jupiter, I have a near opposition. And I ended up on astrohealer.com. Yes, astrohealer.com. Okay, now, what I came across in those studies was Jupiter-Neptune Quincunx. Now, I had not really noticed the term Quincunx before. I'm sure, because I don't know why. It either didn't mean enough, right? And you say, well, who are you to do anything with astrology and not know what a Quincunx is? But, you know, we take it as we take it. And I've certainly gone through all the websites I've gone through that do know things that I don't know. They are missing things that I do know. So there's just so much to go through. But this is June 6th is when I came across the term Quincunx. So I started looking into that. And what was really interesting, that's what it looked, what's a Quincunx? And it's a 150-degree angle. So when we're looking at it in here, you'd have 5 positions. You'd have the corners of a rectangle and then the midpoint where they meet. But your 150-degree angle is this and this, yes? Now, my name starts with K. So, obviously, emotional attachment to figuring out what this is. In medical astrology, it says it can be considered to be the most important aspect in the chart. Okay, so then I went back to this because I put it in my photo diary. I put it there, and I had a lot of experiences of like figuring out, and because of things that were coming true and working out what my soul contracts are, it can be described as being between a rock and a hard place. There are leaps that need to be made in your chart when there's a Quincunx. It is such an awkward placement, and it's often compared to, well, it's used to find talents, but apparently moments of genius or aspects of genius as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people have them. I seem to have a disproportionate number of them. But what I did was return to that, and then in my chart I go to that. But in the meantime, it brought something else to mind. It brought the math to mind. Actually, I'm just going to keep this. I'm just looking for the next. It brought me back to a geometric concept that I had that I feel applies to me, where it's called an extra square, and it's if we can get this on it. If you go to Math Doctor, okay, where did the extra square come from? It's an illusion, but it's also the truth, where you switch the two triangles around, yes, in this arrangement, and all of a sudden in the second arrangement there's this extra space, this white square. And how the hell do you get to it? Well, it's because those two these two triangles, right, there's a gap. They are not at the same angles, truly. And so the gap is spread out, and then there's an overlap. If you turn them around, if you switch the places, right, you can see. So this whole gap, this change of angle is, you know, redistributed and equals a square. But I felt like that totally explains my sense of my existence. So somewhere between that and this Quincunx experience, I dealt with that extra square concept here in figuring out my my free will and soul contracts and expectations and dreams and fantasies. And I wanted to mention that I was kind of stuck figuring out what fantasies I actually have. And let me just put the phone somewhere. I'll need it back in a minute for something else. But the one thing that came to mind was the idea that I grew up in the Lord of the Rings home. My dad's huge Lord of the Rings, and I never really it was too heavy for me. He put me into Narnia, and then Narnia is also heavy. Narnia needs to be fixed, because to put it all on Edmund, and well, there's a ton of stuff in there that needs to be solved spiritually. That is such a mix. And there's insider knowledge that C.S. Lewis had, and same with Tolkien, because they were friends, that they weren't straight up about with Tavistock and everything else. He attempted to put it in analogy, not in allegory, shall we say, in metaphor, thinly veiled in his Silent Planet trilogy. But by and large, the one thing that stuck with me from growing up in that was Tolkien's Dead Army. And I just thought that was just such an amazing thing to have an army that is basically undefeatable because they've already died. And as it turns out, I've ended up with a huge team those are my teams, more so than anybody I meet up with in this world. Everything I do with people who are alive is strong when it's one-on-one, 1-to-1. Okay, I don't do well in groups. I just, and not because I don't love people, but because I don't fit that dynamic. I'll say a thing that just shuts a group conversation down, because I want to solve my Scorpio self and my Capricorn person. We just want to solve a thing. We're not good at small talk. I'm not good at small talk. And so the art of being in a group and wanting to be in the group and giving time to that, and not necessarily having an objective other than to join together for a while. And it's like, I do love that. I get it in sports. I understand sports tremendously. I understand I love making movies. I love being part of a crew when you have the objective, right? But it has to have that objective, and it's got to be project oriented. So if it's a match, if it's a sporting match, I get it. But if it's an ongoing, let's meet up and, just be in each other's space for a while, I'm like, but what are we going to get done with it except groupthink? But no, that's not true for other people that are not in my kind of energy. It is not, it has all the pluses. It's not a minus. For me, it would drain my energy. But I do have teams I have teams on the other side. So it's all about the teamwork, but they do carry the objectives. So then that becomes the fantasy, the musing, the dream that really has basically ruled me through Neptune. And it is real. And it takes time to understand that it's real. So the expectations are me to, based on my placements, come out to following guides. Following guides and God. And then from me, I need help in communicating things the right way. And then, yeah, no, then I got into that whole extra square thing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of like an extra life that slipped in. And I can't expect to succeed based on the first 43 years. I can't expect to succeed in the ways other people will succeed, or to live fully on the radar. I have to stay off the radar to some extent. And that's how I can make my peace with and optimize myself. When you're wanting something and you don't know why you're not having it because you don't have the accurate perspective, then you're stuck, right? You're stuck in the pain, and I don't want to be stuck in the pain because the pain is not productive. It can be, like using it can be productive. But here's what I erased everything that I had here originally. This is what has happened with this page, because I could not resolve, and I know you can't read it. I don't think you can, but you can see exactly how dense the writing got. These are all the aspects. Those are all the aspects, because I couldn't resolve it without getting into that. And it started with the Quincunx. That's what I did. So I grabbed, I needed to work with this size. I need to correct this size. Because remember, well, you might not remember, but in back in Scorpio's house, I realized I wanted to change, I got it here somewhere. Where is it? This is the size, okay? This is the corrected version, but I don't have it as large as that, and I need it as large as that to work with this. Now, you don't need to work with this, except that I enjoyed doing it. If you go back to your original if you print up your original chart from whatever website you got it from, then it will have all of these numbers on it already. I can't remember if they include quincunxes though. And quintiles. There's such a thing as quintiles and then biquintiles. And so those three together are what convinced me that I needed to get into this. Because I think I have at least 5 quincunxes in here. And I have several biquintiles. I have 1 or 2 or 3 quintiles. And then after that, I was like, well, okay, let's look at the squares. And let's look at the trines and the sextiles. Because I went to a website for the Vedic, for the Jyotish, and I'll see if I can mention that. And let's see, I'm just getting into my little photo gallery again. I thought it was really interesting to bring up the Q thing, given everything we know about Q. Now, yes, so I went to, for really interesting information on quintiles, quincunxes, and biquintiles. Basically on these more, on any placement for that matter. Skywriter.wordpress.com. Been around for a while. Okay. Now what's interesting is they're still using, Donna Cunningham, also references her mentor, C.J. Wright. C.J. Wright wrote it with her, but she references Charles Jane. And Charles Jane uses tropical, at this point of these articles, was using tropical. Okay. Starting over. Now, there is a conversation between them And I don't know if I'll get it sharp enough on here. The biquintile is 144 degrees. The quincunx is 150 degrees. The degree that joins these two aspects is 147 degrees. So I always enjoy seeing a string of 3, 6, 9, because if you get the digital sums of those numbers, right? And so they talk about, now there's something to do with being comedic, having comedic qualities, having, a lot of comedians have these quincunxes, but also master, they're linked to master teacher and master mediator through numerology. And I'm just seeing if I can get it here where you can see it. Oh, and then my camera cut out. I've got it noted though. But that also is not where I got the Jyotish. So let me just get the reference for Jyotish. Got into physics for a while here. Now let's see here. No, I'm still in Skyrider. Now again, another one. Now KRS, who I've referenced for Pisces, understanding Pisces, does not understand Scorpio 5 years, as of 5 years ago. Now I haven't gone in, he's gone into further videos on Scorpio, but he's got some missing insights to Scorpio. So I can't praise his Scorpio video the way I could praise his Pisces video, but fair enough. But how aspects work in Vedic astrology, this can be a helpful, I only got halfway through it until I got, you know, I got the point. I got the point of what I was looking for then. Okay, so for trines, sextiles, oppositions, so I went to indastro.com. Okay, and it'll help give, it gave me the best, in over a year of searching, it gave me the best so far for me. Simple, clear, and you see the same map as KRS was using in his. Now I don't necessarily, I can't get my head around that just yet. It looks beautiful, but I'm not going to try and, again, I'm not going to try and stress over getting all of that. I found a guy, Mark Edwards. Now he might be fabulous, but I don't need a white guy teaching me. I need, now, do I know exactly who's behind indastro.com? Not yet, but, and I'm white, who am I to say, right? But still, I like to go back to, I'd rather learn from people that come from it first, or at least if I'm going to quote something, make sure that it checks with, now, I mean, I realize there can be frauds in any background, any skin color, absolutely, but, whoop, and then I kicked the camera. Spirit speaking there. Let's see here. So all of these notes now, that I just put them on the previous chart. This is the Fagan-Bradley chart. So it's I would tweak it this way a little bit. But all of these notes now are the aspects that I paid attention to. Now I know there are some aspects that I have not yet paid attention to. And with time, in time, you know, you can only do so much in so much time. But really what I did was, and I don't mind having this experience of, I just started with the first placement, which is my moon. Now here, because of the older placements, it's still split between Aquarius and Pisces, whereas really it's more into Aquarius. And then I just lined up the 0, right? And I made sure that this all matched as best as possible the lines of my circle so that it's even, yeah? And then you just look for 150 degrees from, see, I put it at one of the dots, right? It covers up the dots right under the 8, yes? And then I look to see if there's anything roughly 150 degrees. There is. I've got my Saturn. Okay, so that's one of my quincunxes. Is my moon with my Saturn. And that's between my my fourth, because in my correct chart it's in my fourth, and my between my third and my fourth houses, depending on which system, right? But I use them both. And then my eighth and my ninth houses. So I'm looking for that rock in that hard place, that leap, that huge leap that needs to be made in a quincunx. But a quincunx, in essence, apart from being a sign of being some kind of comedian, possibly, a biquintile, which is 144 degrees, with an orb, which means a range of maybe a few degrees, so anywhere down to 142 to 146 degrees, up to well, I think it has about a 3-degree orb. So 141 to 147. Then you have a biquintile. And a biquintile means master mediator, because it converts to a 55. And a quincunx, it converts to 11, which is a master teacher. And a quincunx, of course, is 150 with an orb, so you can go 147 to 153, 153 degrees, right? And you've got a quincunx. And then a biquintile, I want to say that's 72 degrees. No, a quintile, sorry. A quintile is 72 degrees, and that would be talents. And that will have an orb of a couple of degrees. It's a shire, so 72 to 74 degrees. Then you have a quintile, and that would be talents. Now, according to them, according to that one website which had put some more, like I like who puts a more positive spin on things, because it gives you something to work with. It's not that the negatives don't matter, but they're not the whole truth anyway. So let's say, for them, a sextile is somewhere that you need to put effort in. It's something where effort is required. So you're going to spend part of your life wrestling with, especially if you don't know that there's a sextile in that area, in that aspect, if you don't know about that aspect, right? So I was coming at it from a non-numeric approach, and now we add the numeric approach, but also the fact that it is a thing, that these degrees do equate to something. And so I would say I'd be even a little more generous with the numbers. If you have something that's that close to being a quincunx, then consider it a quincunx, because it's going to be having something of that kind of an effect on your life. You know, again, through those approximations become accurate. So I think all that was left for the water houses was that I went back, because of fourth house with my lunar placements, I went back and I did my south. Oh, I've got the north node over here. That's right, it's on the back of this page. So I did my south node first and my north node. I finished up my notes in here, including the quincunx information, because I do have a quincunx and a biquintile attached to my south node. And I have my Mercury trined with Mars in the same houses as the biquintile and quincunx. So there's something huge for me in my fourth. God, why can't I find it when I need to see it? You know, you try to make notes that you can read quickly, and then you don't. You fail completely. Okay, how did I do that? In my third, fifth, eighth, and ninth, I do believe. I do believe. And I have my Jupiter squared with both my nodes. So things that I need to, like, that's where I'm going to have pushing points on me, is in those houses between those points. And then so I elaborated on what happened to me in those years, based on how they, you know, like connecting what happened in those years with those placements. Did that for south node. So my south node page and my north node page are now complete, because I do have another quincunx with Chiron. My north node is quincunx with Chiron. So that's like master teacher, because a Quincunx is master teacher. So put that with Chiron, who was teacher, and you've got basically master teacher to infinity there. So where? Well, happily in the Five of Pentacles. Yay! With the Two of Wands. I placed it with the tarot placements. And it's affecting my 9th, 11th, 4th, and 6th houses. Because I also have a biquintile again. I have, with my North Node, I have a biquintile as well with the Sun. So what are the odds that I would have a Quincunx and a biquintile with South Node and other planets, and a Quincunx and a biquintile with North Node and other planets? Basically, I shouldn't even try to live. Again, the square with Jupiter, and this time I have a trine with Venus. Again, in a five of Pentacles. Yeah, in the Five of Pentacles. So where my North Node is. Oh, that is my North Node with the 2 and 3 of Pentacles. That's where my Venus is. And that's affecting my 6th, 7th. So again, it's too much to explain because you're just going to hear a bunch of numbers pouring out of my mouth and be like, I can't keep up with that. But again, bit by bit. That's why you take it in small doses. Take it in small doses, make note of it here and there. And eventually, I can't believe how well this is working out. So I think that mostly, that and the extra space, yeah, I don't think that there's anything else really that I can fairly expect anybody to pay attention to about the water story. So now we're gonna get into Libra's embassy compound. But, oh, no, that's right. I'm just whizzing right past. I didn't do all those pages. Where's that other water story page? Did I need to flip it over? Yeah. Okay, combined houses. Combined houses, because it was on the other side. That's why. I did a Venn diagram. Still recording? Yep. I did a Venn diagram, if you know what those are, with 3 circles interacting. Okay. And then you have a center gap amongst all of them, and I've got nothing in there where anything is in all 3 houses, right? So one was outside the circle was called my submarine, and 1 circle is my houseboat, and 1 circle is my cruise ship. Now my submarine goes inside. I do have, according to my house placements, I have Scorpius in Pisces as a placement, and I have either as a house or as a planet or as whatever, right? In my houseboat, I have Pisces somewhere as a placement, as a house, as a whatever. So I've got cruise ship in my houseboat, and in Scorpio, I have somehow, some way, houseboat. I have either 4th house or moon or whatever whatever it is. I've got that in there, but they don't, nothing doubled up anywhere. So I have this very even distribution, and I kind of came up with different hierarchies based on that. And I wonder if behaviorally, depending on what energy I'm in, if that follows my progress, my behavior patterns, if you get me. And how much one house understands the other, or through the other. So then, when it came to, because I have 7th house so closely tied to Pisces and the cruise ship, my kind of embassy compound ended up being a flotilla of every kind of boat. Wait for the siren to pass. Or not. And so what's interesting for me is I was wondering, how the hell am I going to get from cruise ship to compound? So the incompatibility I found, because I have Taurus and the tent in my houseboat. I have 2nd house placements in my houseboat. There's compatibility I find between a tent and a houseboat. Very connected to, very grounded in its own way, yes? And a flow and easiness of it. But I also have the 8-star travel hostel, which could be fine. But then I have the cruise ship. and the space station. Those two I find are not compatible lifestyle-wise with the tent, because I came up with something anchored between Earth and a fixed point in space, outer or suborbital. Probably suborbital is enough for spaceships, if spaceships can launch into outer space from it, right? The space station. So I'll research that. But yes, sort of bi-anchored or tethered, and it could be controlled, would originate within the houseboat. It could lasso out towards the docks, up or down, right? But because of the cruise ship placement, it would need to be organized, staffed, and maintained and designed to cruise ship aesthetics. Because there's more cruise ship in my house, in my fourth house, than there is travel hostel. So Aquarius standards, although they'd be eclectic, I think they'd be more accommodating than cruise ship Pisces aesthetics. Am I saying I think Pisces would be fussier than Aquarius? Yes. But concessions and key qualities have to be made to certain 8-star hostel expectations, or Aqua won't play ball. Because if you're not interested in Aquarius, Aquarius isn't interested in you, and fair enough. So, activities, destinations have to be unusual, and there have to be ways to live on board and be independent, self-catering, because the whole point of the hostel, right, is that you do for yourself. You maintain some kind of autonomy. Self-catering with optimal shared resources and access to kitchens, etc. And then the communal thing, because you want to interact with others, you want to meet people from everywhere. And the cruise ship would be a balance of that. It would be, yes, I want to be with other people, but I also want to not be with other people. All this readily adapts to space station needs, absolutely, because the same idea of communal and functions. But as for the tent, now there would be ways that the Taurus energy could definitely be on board with all of this, but in terms of actually the free flow in and out of things, the true, and then being connected to Earth, I was like, okay, I need to come up with that holodeck, right? But that would only be a virtual experience, and that would be while in transit, but it's certainly not going to appease the tent soul. Yeah, that flow between indoors and outdoors, it would be blocked underwater, except we're not going to be underwater. It would be blocked in space. You'd need the space suit, but then that's not the same as being on Earth, coming and going from your tent. So we could make for regular land excursions, but then you'd have to come back from land. So I feel like there's actually what would be described as a planetary aspect that's negative. I'm finding it here between Taurus, the second house, and the combined influences of my placements in my fourth. So there is discord in my fourth house, I find, because of that. Something I have to reconcile. And it's only by imagining what a combined house would have to be. So I'm satisfied with this page and what it's accomplishing. Will I build another 2 pages for aspects and include them in future versions? Absolutely. And then when I get to the flotilla that I imagined for the cruise ship, because I have the embassy compound in there, but I also have a submarine and I have a spice pod. So I just built it all into a flotilla. And therefore, that in terms of, aircraft carrier, like every kind, military, naval, obviously, well, military as well, because you're going to have the Air Force with their aircraft carrier. The Navy probably is in charge of it, but, and then that poses the problem of, but again, that would be everything to do with embassy interests, territories, and territory, multinationals, never mind. But anyway, so I'm finding the transition for me from Pisces to Libra is actually way more natural than I thought it would be. Originally, at first, when I was hitting the air energy from the water energy, there was that sharp contrast, absolutely. But now, in terms of how we would otherwise get you from the cruise ship to the, mentally adjust from cruise ship and water, all this water energy, to the air energy of Libra, then we have to dock. We have to dock somehow, wherever your embassy compound is. And then there's paperwork, there's red tape, there's all kinds of stuff that you need to clear from going from, an escapist cruise ship lifestyle to, but you do have to do paperwork to get on a cruise ship. And the cruise ships were actually the first to use vaccine passports. So they were in on this from the get-go. But yeah. So that's what I have to say about that. So now back to Libra. Okay. But that is quite the workout. So once we get to air story, we'll know how involved it'll be. And okay, I'm gonna shut up now and get on with Libra. Thank you and much love.